Giant chicken chasing me around the box. Holy no! Get away from me! No, I'm reloading. Players, over here, he's getting chased. Push with me.
Giving you divine strike.
He's behind us. He's dead. I have no heals. Oh no, there's another big guy here. Ah!
You almost killed by this little.
There's another one. I'm gonna die.
You're already at the door. I'm gonna extract.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. The stairs. Keep running. Run.
I made it. Dark and Darker is an unforgiving, hardcore PvPvE extraction game that will test your wits, skill, courage, and even your friendships, folks. Whether you're a solo adventurer braving the darkness on your own, or part of a tight-knit team of 2 or 3, you'll face deadly monsters, challenging bosses, and, perhaps most dangerous of all, other players who want what you have. It's all about strategy, teamwork, and knowing when to fight or when to run. Currently in early access, Dark and Darker is packed with adrenaline pumping action, and there's even more to come, folks, with new features and content on the horizon. This is just the beginning for this hardcore dungeon crawling adventure. So grab your sword, ready your spells, and prepare yourself, because Dark and Darker is not just about survival, it's about thriving in the utter bedlam and chaos that waits for you below. Before we jump in, I want to thank Dark and Darker and Iron Mace for sponsoring today's video. And if you're a fan of intense dungeon crawling action, stick around because you're going to love this. And if you're interested in trying Dark and Darker out for free, click the link in the pinned comment and the description below. In today's video, we're going to give an initial first impression breakdown of the game itself and the plethora of selling points this game has to offer, whilst also offering a surface level breakdown of the gameplay loop and systems for new players who are much like me and looking to embark on the journey into the depths. Now, let's get into it. Dark and Darker's concept is straightforward. You and up to 2 friends, or even just by yourself if you're feeling brave enough, are dropped into a dark, dangerous dungeon teeming with traps, treasures, and terrifying creatures. Your goal? Very simple. Loot as much as you can, survive long enough to locate one of the rare extraction portals or exits, and escape with your hard-earned spoils. At its core, the gameplay loop is simple to understand, but believe me, folks, it's incredibly difficult to master, and that's where the magic starts to happen. You start by selecting a character class. These follow the usual fantasy tropes with some nice flavoursome variation thrown in there for good measure. The tanky fighter, the relentless barbarian, the stealthy, stabby rogue, arrow and bolt spewing ranger, elementally destructive wizard, healing and support coming from the cleric, of course, and the loud but CC-centric bard, the dark magic manipulating warlock, and the shape-shifting druid. They also have everyone's favourite master of elements, the sorcerer, as a work in progress. So there's a real range of flavours here, folks. And if you haven't played this game in a while, the latter 3 have just been added in a major update. So there really is something for everyone to get their teeth sunk into. Each class bringing its own strengths and weaknesses and the ability to synergize effectively with each other. We found that the cleric and the ranger work particularly well together in the early game, and that's what we settled with. From the moment you enter, you'll scour the environment for better gear, gold, sellable items, upgrades, all while taking on increasingly tougher enemies. There's skeletal warriors, venomous spiders, deadly bosses. There's even gargoyles, there's even suits of walking armor. The list's endless, folks. It's a really, really nice mixture of enemies, and I was actually quite surprised by that. But here's the catch. It's not just about collecting loot, it's about keeping hold of it. And the only way you can secure your spoils is to make it out alive through the aforementioned extraction portal. And if you die, whether to a monster, a trap, or in a lot of cases this happens, another player, you lose everything you've gathered. So it's not just about the dungeon AI enemies that you need to watch out for. Other players with the exact same goal are lurking in the shadows, ready to ambush you for your loot. You'll constantly find yourself making split-second decisions, hasty call-outs. Should you engage in a tense duel, bide your time to wait for them to make a mistake, or avoid the fight entirely and head for an extraction portal? Every encounter is a gamble, and every decision could be the difference between glory and starting over empty-handed. And this is the crux of what makes Dark and Darker, in my opinion, such a well-designed and thought-out game. It's that element of push-pull, that element of tension, that fear, that what if or maybe it could have been different, and that's what keeps you dropping back into the next run, and that's absolutely awesome. But the best part of all this is if you survive, you take your loot back to the game's hub where you can trade, sell, and upgrade your character. And this is where that risk-reward design really shines. You need to decide how much to bring into your next run. Do you play it safe with basic gear, or do you risk bringing in your best loadout for a chance of getting even better rewards because you're absolutely slamming through the opposition? And I will talk a little bit about how the matchmaking works in that regard in a moment. It's a really brutal and unforgiving cycle of risk-reward. Dive in, loot, survive, extract, and prepare to do it all again. And every run feels like it's a high-stakes adventure filled with tension, strategy, and unexpected encounters. Honestly, that's what's made Dark and Darker for me so compelling. And I'll be completely honest, folks, I'm addicted to Path of Exile 2 at the moment, and playing this game really surprised me how much I enjoyed it. I did play this game way back when it was in early beta, and I really enjoyed it, but I kind of bounced off it and moved on. I've had such a good time. I've found myself thinking about this game when I'm not playing it, which is always a really good indicator. I was taken aback by that. I wasn't expecting it. And coming from a huge love of Hunt Showdown and generally fantasy game settings, I settled right into this game almost immediately. My friend also compared the quest hub, the trading gameplay loop, to Escape from Tarkov, and said that's very familiar in that regard too. So if that's the angle you're coming from, again, you will settle right into this. Now, before we go into an overview of the game's systems and all that good stuff, I think it's worth mentioning that Dark and Darker is actually a free-to-play game at its core level. It's actually split into two statuses. We have Squire status, which is your free account status, and you've got Legendary status, which I will talk about in a moment. In terms of the free-to-play model, what we have is access to normal dungeons, only one character slot, so that's a bit of a pain if you're wanting to try out different things. You can buy items from the marketplace, but you can't sell them. You have a default stash, so that means you have no shared stash between characters. It also means that you need to pay, I think it's about 1,500 gold to get a stash tab extra. You run out of stash space pretty quickly, folks, if you're a hoarder like me, and you gain triumph experience at the normal rate. Now, if you were to pay $30 US, you can unlock Legendary status, gaining access to the full-size shared stash, 9 character slots, the ability to list and sell items on the marketplace, and use the trading post and gain access to what's called the High Roller Dungeon. Now, High Roller Dungeons are where the competitive elements are at. You have ranks. It's much more competitive in a PvP sense. The PvE content is much more difficult. Enemies are just much harder. There's no gear score limitation, so this is where you can really let rip. We'll talk about that in a moment. And it's just generally much more higher stakes with much more to lose. I believe there's a fee that you have to pay to do a high roll dungeon as well, so there's just lots at stake. It really ups the ante, and this is where you're going to want to go if you're starting to take the game really seriously. However, I wouldn't recommend this if it's your first forays into this game. You can play the free-to-play mode and just go into normal dungeons, and you are limited by gear score here. You can only go in if your gear score is lower than 124. Now, gear score is very interesting. You can see at the moment that my gear score is 80. So gear score basically works on what you have on your character when you go in. So for argument's sake, I've got this purple recurve bow. If I was to put this in my stash, look at that. It throws my gear score up to 170. I can't go in wearing that. What I can do, though, is pick these items up in there and use them. So when I'm in a run, I can pick them up and use them and kill enemies with them. If I take the green recurve bow off, it drops it down to 125 rather. So we'd have to go to our Squire and buy base gear, which is going to give us that there. And that's actually put us down to 111. We can go in like that. Now, aside from the merchants allowing you to sell and buy gear, you can also pick up quests from them. So if we click on quest log here, this actually summarizes everything really nicely. I've picked everything up. You get random quests off them that will be allocated to certain dungeons. We can actually see here the tailor has asked me to kill skeleton archers and kill some swordsmen. We've done that. I think it was the Goblin Caves or the Ice Caverns that we did that in. It's completed, so I will now get 50 XP, some affinity with the tailor, a nice blue chest, some silver powder, which I believe is used for creating silver ore, which is great for the crafting in the game as well, and 75 coins, so boom, there we go. happy days. So that's kind of your gameplay loop in terms of your early start. This helps you level up really quickly. I've got this ranger up to level 20, and as you gain levels, you unlock perks that you can use. So you start off with one, then at level 5 you get another, then at level 10, then at level 15. You also have 2 skills that you can use as well, and these can be interchanged, and this is where the game really opens up, and this is what I really like about Dark and Darker, and honestly, it's what actually makes me think I might be playing this game a little bit more than I expected, because I love making build guides. If you're familiar with the channel, you know that's my bread and butter amongst other things. We played PoE too, we played Space Marine, etc. We love making builds. This, I've currently built. I've looked at bow draw speed, I've looked at physical damage bonus, I've looked at headshot power, and I've looked at chase, so I'm able to see where enemies are. But you could switch it up. You might want to use spear proficiency, so you can use spears and gain more physical power. You might want to look at slowing enemies when you hit them in the leg by crippling shot. There's so many little combos you can do, and if you're working with someone else, you can actually talk about how the synergy works, which is, as you can probably tell, for me, one of the most exciting bits about this game. And then you have your skills, which are on cooldown. You've got True Shot. You press Q before you enter a fight or before you're about to fire some shots, and it will give you increased physical damage bonus. This one, which you've seen me using in some of the montages, is super nice. Quick Shot fires arrows in quick succession. Each bow type will fire a different amount of arrows. I've been using the recurve bow most. I believe that's 3 shots. So there's little nuances to how you build your character, much more than first meets the eye, which I think's absolutely awesome. Now, it's worth talking about the gear because that further diversifies what you can do in terms of builds, and there are 5 tiers to your gear, 5 tiers of rarity, if you will. If you're used to action RPGs and the way that they work this, you'll be very at home here. We've got our lowest level white gear, or in this case, poor rarity, which then moves on to uncommon, and then rare, and then epic, and then we have things like legendary. From what I understand, the difference here is the base stats don't seem to move that much. I could be wrong, but if you look, each tier that we go up has 1 extra stat line. So if we just go over those again, we've got grey gear, absolutely nothing. Green gear, 1 additional stat, which is +4 move speed on these boots. Blue gear, so rare gear, we've got +2 dex and +1 physical power. And then on purple gear, so epic gear, we've got 3. We've got +1 will, +5 move speed, +3.6 memory capacity bonus. And then if we go over here onto this legendary chest, we've got vigor, resourcefulness, dexterity, and physical healing. If we take a look at this longbow, it's got +5.7 buff duration bonus, +4.7 debuff duration bonus, +3 physical damage bonus, and +3 max health. This is not only going to be great for you when you're going into those high roller dungeons, but I imagine you will also be able to sell these things on the trade site if you were to purchase the legendary status for this game. 5,500 for this ring. That's going to make you an absolute boatload of gold. Now, we've only scratched the surface of this game in this video, folks, and I can safely tell you that I am going to be playing this game now that I've been fully introduced to it and immersed in it. I think it's got so much potential. If you're interested in giving it a shot and playing it, click on the link in the description below or the pinned comment below to visit Iron Mace's website and check out the game on either Epic Game Store or Steam. And you can also join the Dark and Darker community by joining their Discord server, which I'll also put in the pinned comment below. Check out this next video. It's got you covered. Take care of yourselves. Keep having fun. Come check out a stream on YouTube or Twitch, and I'll see you in the next one.